ॐ विश्वन्दर्पणदृश्यमाननगरी तुल्यन्निजान्तर्गतम् पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया बहिरिवोद्भूतं यथा निद्रया यः साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोधसमये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयम् तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नम इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये। नारायणं पद्मभुवं वसिष्ठं शक्तिं च तत्पुत्रपराशरं च व्यासं शुकं गौडपदं महान्तं गोविन्दयोगीन्द्रमथास्य शिष्यं श्रीशङ्कराचार्यमथास्य पद्मपादं च हस्तामलकं च शिष्यं तन्तोटकं वार्तिककारमन्यान् अस्मद्गुरून् सन्ततमानतोऽस्मि। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। परब्रह्मनिष्ठं स्वतो धर्मनिष्ठम् अहिंसैकनिष्ठं स्वशिष्यै सुजुष्टं यतीनां वरिष्ठं गुरूणां गरिष्ठं दयानन्दरूपं मदाचार्यमीडे। नमः श्रीपरमार्थाय संसाराध्यासनाशिने श्रोत्रियब्रह्मनिष्ठाय तस्मै ब्रह्मविदे नमः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम्। नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे भुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयः प्रदीपः। प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्स सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरणनदी कैवर्तकः केशवः। पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटं नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितं। लोके सज्जनषट्पदैरहरहः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयाद्भारतपङ्कजं कलिमल प्रध्वंसि न श्रेयसे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम्। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः. I welcome you all to the 18th class of our Bhagavad Gita study. We will read the 31st verse of the second chapter. Swadharmamapi chavekshya
स्वधर्ममपि चावेक्ष्य
na vikampitum arhasi
न विकम्पितुमर्हसि
dharmyadhi yuddhat shreyonyat
धर्म्यार्धियुद्धात् श्रेयोऽन्यत्
kshatriyasya na vidyate.
क्षत्रियस्य न विद्यते.
As we have been seeing, Arjuna is suffering from the distressing symptoms of shokaha and mohaha, sorrow and confusion. Or in other words, he is suffering from the symptoms of the disease of samsara. And Bhagavan wants to eliminate this disease from its root cause. And therefore, Bhagavan started off the teaching by saying, Na anushocanti panditaha. Panditaha na anushocanti. Or in other words, Bhagavan said that the Atma Jnanis do not grieve. So how is it that the Atma Jnanis do not grieve? What is the difference between an Atma Jnani and an Ajnani? The difference is purely in terms of Atma Jnanam. The Atma Jnani knows who I am. Ajnani doesn't. So how does Atma Jnanam make a difference? What does Atma Jnanam do to eliminate the disease of samsara? All that Atma Jnanam does is that it removes Atma Ajnanam. So how does removal of Atma Ajnanam eliminate the disease of samsara? The removal of Atma Ajnanam eliminates the disease of samsara because the disease of samsara is caused by Atma Ajnanam. The distressing symptoms of shokaha and mohaha are purely caused by Atma Ajnanam and Atma Ajnanam alone. A human being is born with twofold ignorance: ignorance of the world and ignorance of the self. So as a child, everybody has this twofold ignorance. But as the child grows, one keeps on shedding ignorance of the world. Because one goes to school, and what they teach in school is all about the world. And therefore one keeps on shedding ignorance of the world. But the ignorance of the self remains intact. And when there is ignorance of the self, when I don't know who I am, I invariably mistake myself to be something else other than what I am. And once this mistake has crept in, then I take myself to be this body and mind which is deficient, wanting, inadequate, apurna. And once this apurnatvam, this idea of self-deficiency, self-incompleteness has come in, then I cannot help but rely upon the world, lean upon the world for my fullness, for my completeness. And therefore, ragaha invariably comes in. But the world is unpredictable, uncontrollable, unsustainable. And therefore, if I am critically dependent upon the world for my fullness and completeness, then when the world goes through ups and downs, my mind also goes through ups and downs. My mind is always riding an emotional roller coaster. And therefore, shokaha, sorrow, mohaha, confusion are unavoidable, are inevitable. Now, if the symptoms of shokaha and mohaha are to be eliminated once and for all, then one has to eliminate that which gives rise to it. One has to eliminate this compulsive dependence upon the world for my fullness and completeness. And if this compulsive dependence upon the world for my fullness and completeness has to go, then my vision that I am deficient, wanting, inadequate, this vision has to be corrected. And this vision, that this mistaken idea, we cannot even call it a vision, it's more of a notion. The notion that I am deficient, wanting, inadequate itself arises due to Atma Jnanam, due to not knowing my real nature. And therefore, the only solution is to bring in Atma Jnanam. Because Atma Jnanam alone eliminates Atma Ajnanam. And therefore, Bhagavan says, Nanu Shruchanti Panditaha. Bhagavan gives Arjuna this Atma Jnanam. And through Arjuna, Bhagavan is giving each of us this Atma Jnanam. Bhagavan is telling each of us who we really are. And who am I? I am of the nature of consciousness. I am the Atma, that is of the nature of consciousness, that is not a part, product, or property of this body mind. I, the Atma, that is of the nature of consciousness, I am an independent principle that pervades this body mind and enlivens this body mind. I, the Atma, that is of the nature of consciousness, am not limited by the boundaries of this body mind. I, the Atma, that is of the nature of consciousness, continue to exist even after the body mind disintegrates. And I, the Atma, that is of the nature of consciousness, that continues to exist even after the body mind disintegrates, cannot be transacted with, not because I cease to exist, but because there is no medium through which I can transact. So this is who I really am. And Bhagavan says that the one who knows this cannot grieve. Cannot grieve for one's own body and mind, nor for somebody else's body mind. Because every jiva is a combination of this Atma and Anatma. So what is one grieving for if we were to look into it? Then the anatma component of the jiva is anityaha and mithya. Anityaha and mithya. Anityaha means it is always coming and going. It is fleeting, impermanent. This is the nature of the anatma. This is the nature of the body. And therefore, the wise do not get attached to this anatma. Because they know it is anityaha. This is the nature of anatma. And when something is the nature, then it is a choiceless situation. I don't have a choice in the matter. No amount of wishful thinking, no amount of prayer, no amount of action can change a situation which is unalterable, which is choiceless. I don't have a choice in the matter. And therefore, the wise, having recognized that the going of anatma is choiceless, do not grieve for the anatma. And moreover, the anatma is mithya, meaning that it is not even really there. What is really there is the atma. The anatma only has dependent existence. It doesn't have its own existence. And therefore, we cannot say that it exists. Categorically, we cannot say. So how can one grieve for that which is not even really existing? And therefore the wise do not grieve for the anitya anatma, the wise do not grieve for the mithya anatma. And if we look at the atma component of the jiva, then the atma is nityaha and satyaha. It is immortal and it alone really exists. There is one atma that pervades all the bodies, which is immortal and which is real. And this Atma never comes and goes. Na sato vidyate bhavaha, na bhavo vidyate sataha. That which is real, it never comes and goes. On the other hand, that which comes and goes was never there to begin with. And therefore, the wise do not grieve for the Atma also. And therefore, from whichever viewpoint you look at it, from the anatma standpoint or the atma standpoint, from the standpoint of the two components of the jiva, there is no reason for grief. So this is the Atma Jnanam that Bhagavan gives Arjuna. And then Bhagavan concludes this teaching from this Adhyatmika Drishtihi, Vedanta Drishtihi, Atma Jnana Drishtihi. And Bhagavan points out that this Atma is a wonder. Ascharyavat pashyati kaschidena. Ascharyavat vadati tathaiva chanyah. Ascharyavat chainam anyah shroti shrutva pyenam vedana chaiva kaschit. So the Jnani looks upon the Atma as a wonder. And the rare Jnani who knows the Atma is also a wonder. The Guru who teaches the Atma with wonder. And the rare Guru who teaches the Atma is also a wonder. The student who listens to the Atma, listens to the teaching of the Atma, listens to it with wonder. And the rare student who listens to this teaching with commitment is also a wonder. And the one who, in spite of having listened to this, still does not get it, even that is a wonder, because he is able to know everything else in the world. He keeps shedding ignorance about the things of the world. But then the ignorance of the self remains intact even after he has been taught. So he knows everything else, but he doesn't know himself. A peculiar situation. And this is also a wonder. And then Bhagavan points out through this verse that this Atma Jnanam is a rare phenomenon. Because it is not easy. It is not easy to gain this Atma Jnana. And therefore Bhagavan comes down from this Adhyatmika Drishti, Atma Jnana Drishti, Vedanta Drishti. Bhagavan comes down to the Dharmika Drishti, Veda Purva Drishti, Vyavaharika Drishti. And Bhagavan says that even if you are not able to get this Atma Jnanam, no problem, let us set it aside for some time. But even considering your dharma, like we saw in this verse, so dharmamapi chavekshya vikampitum arhasi. Even if you were to consider it from the standpoint of dharma, you should not waver. Vikampitum arhasi, you should not waver. You should not stray away from your dharma, Bhagavan says. Because even from the dharmika drishti, this war is a legitimate war. It has to be fought. And therefore, Arjuna should not have this misplaced compassion or grief, but instead take up his arms and fight. Bhagavan says, Dharmyat yuddhat anyat shreyaha kshatriyasya na vidyate. That there is no greater good for a kshatriya. Anyat shreyaha na vidyate. There is no greater good for a kshatriya. Compared to what? Compared to a righteous war. Dharmyat yuddha. So you are looking at the etymology, the vyutpatti of the word kshatriya. Kshatat, adharmat, trayate, iti kshatriyaha. Like we were saying, that kshata refers to something that is broken. Like we took the example of akshata. Akshata means unbroken rice is called akshata. Kshata means something that is broken. So adharma is also called kshata because it breaks a society. Society becomes broken, non-functional if the dharma is not there. And therefore the one who protects the society from degenerating, spiraling into adharma is a kshatriya. And how does a kshatriya protect the society from adharma? Bhagavad Gita uses a beautiful word. Prithvi Jayat Dwarena, Bhagavad Gita says. By conquest of the Prithvi, by conquest of the kingdom. The Kshatriya conquers the kingdom, wins the kingdom. And then, why does he win the kingdom? Not for his personal gain, but Kshatat Adharmat Trayate Kshatriya, for the establishment of Dharma. And how does a Kshatriya establish Dharma? By keeping those who are engaging in Dharma, by keeping them in check. And if they still don't come to the path of Dharma, having exhausted all the non-violent means, finally, if violence has to be taken up, he takes up himsa also. Just like a doctor tries to save a diseased limb as much as possible. But if that limb is beyond repair, if it cannot be cured, and if it's affecting the rest of the organism, then the only choice left is to amputate that limb. And so the Kshatriya dharma is this. If needed, take up himsa for the sake of establishment of Dharma. So Arjuna was a Kshatriya who had this duty to engage in himsa if needed. The whole society cannot be given this job, because if the entire society were to take up himsa for the sake of dharma, then there would be chaos in the society. And therefore, not everybody can take up this job. And that is why, just like in the body, there is the immune system that has the job of protecting the body. Every organ doesn't do this job. Similarly, the kshatriyas are the organ that is responsible for the protection of dharma. And Arjuna had been specifically trained by the state for this warfare. So even during peace, a kshatriya has to keep his skills intact. He has to keep practicing his skills even during peacetime. And he has to keep his weapons in order even during peace. Why? Because he has to be prepared for the eventuality that he needs to fight. And therefore, Arjuna had been doing all of this prior to this war. Arjuna had, in fact, gathered a lot of weapons from different sources. But he did not do any of this in order to intentionally hurt anybody or in order for his own personal gain. But he did it because it was as dharma, as a kshatriya. And then Duryodhana and his entire side, whoever was on that side, was clearly on the side of adharma, as we had seen. Atatai, there are several atatais on that side. Means those who have committed several crimes. And Arjuna could not let this adharma continue. And that is why Bhagavan says, Vikampitum na arhasi. You cannot stray, you cannot waver from your dharma. You should not hesitate to do that which needs to be done. And therefore, kshatriyasya dharmyat yuddhat anyat shreyaha na vidyate. For a kshatriya, there is nothing greater than a righteous war in which he gets the opportunity to uphold dharma. And this war comes under a legitimate righteous war. And Arjuna, Bhagavan is saying that you are on the right side. You are on the side of dharma. So Bhagavan has given reasons from the dharmika drishti for Arjuna to fight. Dharma rakshanartham, for the sake of upholding dharma. Because he says dharmyat yuddhat, for the sake of upholding dharma, and for praja rakshanartham, for the sake of protection of the people. And Bhagavan gives another reason, which is that anyat shreyaha na vidyate. For a kshatriya, there is no greater good. And then Bhagavan gives another reason in the next verse, which is Swarga Praptihi. We'll read that. The next verse, number 32. Yadrichaya chopapannam
Yadrichaya chopapannam
Swargadvaram apavritam
Vargadvaram apavritam
Sukhinah kshatriyah partha
Sukinaha kshatriyah partha
Labhante yuddhamidrisham.
Labhante yuddhamidrisham.
So in this verse, a few notes on the pronunciation first. So here we say Sukhinaha Kshatriya Partha. So before a Ksha, if there is a Visarga, then we pronounce that Visarga fully. That's a rule. Sukhinaha kshatriyaha, we should say. Because in some cases, when there's a kakara, khakara, pakara, or phakara, the visarga becomes an ardha visarga. But when there's a kshakara, we should not, it overrides that particular rule. So we should say Sukhinaha kshatriyaha. The second is kshatriyaha partha is there. So the preferable pronunciation is kshatriya partha. Kshatriya partha. It's called upatmaniyaha, where the visarga becomes a f sound before a pakara. So Bhagavan here says, Partha, he Partha, which is there in the third quarter. Bhagavan says, hey Partha, O Arjuna. And Bhagavan says, Labhante. Labhante means they obtain. They obtain. So who obtain? Kshatriyaha labhante. In the third and fourth quarter, we have Kshatriyaha labhante, meaning the Kshatriyas obtain, Bhagavan says. And what kind of Kshatriyas? Sukhinaha Kshatriyaha labhante, meaning the fortunate Kshatriyas obtain. And what do the fortunate Kshatriyas obtain? Yuddham. Yuddham. It is there in the last quarter. Yuddham idrisham. So, Sukhinaha Kshatriyaha Yuddham labhante, Bhagavan says, meaning the fortunate, only the fortunate Kshatriyas get a Yuddham. So, is Bhagavan talking about any kind of Yuddham? No, Bhagavan here says, Idrisham Yuddham, Yuddham Idrisham. Idrisham Yuddham means this kind of Yuddham only the fortunate Kshatriyas obtain. And what kind of Yuddham is this? In the second quarter, Bhagavan says, Swargadvaram apavratam. So this kind of Yuddham, Idrisham Yuddham is Swargadvaram apavratam, means it's like an open gateway to heaven, to Swarga. What kind of gateway is it? Apavratam. Apavratam means open. So only the fortunate Kshatriyas get this kind of a Yuddham, which is as good as an open invitation to Swarga. Gates of Swarga have been opened for you, Bhagavan. Upapannam yadrichhaya cha upapannam. Upapannam means this has come. This open gates of Swarga have come to you, have been obtained by you. And how has it been obtained? Bhagavan says yadrichhaya. Yadrichhaya means by chance. This has come. So why is it by chance? Because Arjuna has not gone after it. Arjuna has not, it has come without desiring, without seeking for it. So Upapannam, Apavratam, Swargadvaram, these gates of Swarga have opened for you. Because the Shastras say that a person who dies during the performance of duty, that person goes to Swarga. And Bhagavan is saying that this is not easy. This kind of a chance is not easy to get. That's why he says, Sukhinaha kshatriyaha partha idrisham yuddham labhante. This kind of a chance to fight for the cause of Dharma, for upholding Dharma, not everybody gets it. And that's why Bhagavan says, Yadrichhaya, this has come to you by chance. And not everybody gets it. So if we were to look at all the Kshatriyas on the other side, so the warriors on the side of Duryodhana, or Bhishma, Drona, and all of them, the same could not be said of them, because superficially they could have said that they are doing their Swadharma. But if you look deeply into it, then they are on the side of adharma because they are supporting Duryodhana, who is an atatai, who is a usurper. He has usurped the kingdom by unfair means. And therefore, now people like Bhishma and Drona and Karna, they all had their own compulsions to fight on that side. So, for example, if we look at Bhishma, Bhishma had taken this vow that he would stand by the kingdom, the throne of Hastinapura. And Duryodhana had also pampered Drona and Bhishma and all of them, and they felt somehow obligated. It was more of an obligation and a compulsion. And similarly for Karna, Duryodhana had literally bought Karna over. Because Karna had all these issues about not feeling good being the son of a charioteer. And Duryodhana made him a king. And therefore literally he purchased Karna. And he also felt obligated to fight for his friend. And therefore many of the people there had their own compulsions. But if they were to peek into their own hearts, then their hearts could not be free of conflict. Because everybody knows what dharma is, what adharma is. Duryodhana himself says, Janami dharmam, janami adharmam. I know what is dharma, I know what is adharma. But there is some force within me which is not letting me act according to dharma, he says. And that force is nothing but desire and anger, which we had looked at in the fundamentals of Vedanta class. Kama esha, krodha esha, rajoguna samudbhava. So their desire and anger and all of these things are so powerful that they override the decision of what is dharma and adharma. But internally they know what is dharma and adharma. And therefore their mind cannot be free of conflict. They cannot fight with a clean heart. Whereas Arjuna here was clearly on the side of dharma. And therefore Arjuna's mind was conflict free, his heart was conflict free. And therefore, when one is fighting a war, then Bhagavan is saying this kind of a war has come to you. So the gates of Swarga are open for you. And therefore, one is fortunate to get such an opportunity, Bhagavan is saying. You have gotten this opportunity, and therefore don't miss this chance. Don't hesitate, but take up your arms and do your Swadharma. So in the prior two verses, Bhagavan has mentioned the positive aspects of Arjuna taking up the arms and fighting. So Bhagavan has mentioned Dharma Rakshanartham for the upkeep, for the establishment of Dharma, for the protection of Dharma, Praja Rakshanartham, which in turn is going to protect the society. And as we have seen, Kshatriyasya Shreyaskaram, this war, this Yuddha is the greatest good for a Kshatriya, and Swarga Prapti. Bhagavan is giving here another reason, Swarga Prapti. So Bhagavan has given the positives of Arjuna fighting this war. And in the next shloka, Bhagavan now gives the negative of not fighting the war. We will read. अथ चेत् त्वमिमं धर्म्यम्
अथ चेत्त्वमिमं धर्म्यं
सङ्ग्रामं न करिष्यसि
सङ्ग्रामं न करिष्यसि
ततः स्वधर्मं कीर्तिं च
ततः स्वधर्मं कीर्तिं च
हित्वा पापमवाप्स्यसि
हित्वा पापमवाप्स्यसि
अथ चेत् tvam imam dharmyam sangramam na karishyasi tatah swadharmam kirtim cha hitva papam avapsyasi. So Bhagavan says, atha chet, atha chet, but if. So, but if what? Tvam na karishyasi. So, tvam is there in the first quarter. Atha chet, tvam imam dharmyam. Sangramam na karishyasi. So, tvam and na karishyasi we combine first. So, atha chet, tvam na karishyasi. Meaning if you don't. And if you don't do. And if you don't do what? Sangramam imam dharmyam. Imam dharmyam sangramam. So imam sangramam. If you don't fight this war, athachet tvam imam sangramam na karishyasi. If you don't fight this war, Bhagavan says. And what kind of war is it? Dharmyam. Athachet tvam imam dharmyam is there. So dharmyam is an adjective to sangramam. So if you don't fight this war, which is a righteous war, which is in keeping with dharma, and Bhagavan says tataha, tataha means then. So then what? Avapsyasi. Avapsyasi means you will attain, you will get. And you will get what? Papam avapsyasi is there in the last quarter. Papam avapsyasi. Tataha papam avapsyasi meaning you will get papam. And having done what? Hitva, hitva. Hitva means having given up. So having given up what? Swadharmam kirtim cha. Having given up your swadharma and your kirti, meaning your fame and honor. Having given up your swadharma and your honor, fame, you will get papam, Bhagavan says. So earlier, Arjuna had tried to justify in the first chapter. We recall that this Arjuna said, Papam eva shrayed asmat hatva etan atatayinah. That if we kill these atatayis, we will get papam, Arjuna had said. And then Arjuna had given a discourse on why it is papam. He said that if we fight this war, then the able-bodied men would be killed and families would be destroyed. And if the families are destroyed, Arjuna had said, Kulakshaye pranashyanti kuladharma sanatana. That all of these family traditions and customs, they would all be destroyed. And then if the dharma, family dharma is destroyed, kula dharma is destroyed, then the family will be overpowered by adharma. And if the family is overpowered by adharma, then Arjuna had said, adharma bhibhavat Krishna pradushyanti kulastriyaha, that the women would fall into bad conduct because adharma, the family would be overpowered by adharma. And then varna sankara jayate varna sankaraha, then it would result in a mix-up of dharma. And finally Arjuna said that would result in the loss, the ancestors losing their oblations. Lupta pindodaka kriyaha. And then these destroyers of dharma and the ancestors, they would all fall, Arjuna had said. And therefore, Arjuna was arguing that one would get papa. But then Bhagavan is countering what Arjuna had said earlier. Bhagavan here teaches him the opposite, saying that as a Kshatriya, it is your obligatory duty to protect dharma. And not fighting and not running, and not fighting but running away would be a non-performance of the obligatory duty and the performance of something else that is not his obligatory duty. It would be swadharma parityagaha and paradharma anushthan. And if one gets into this situation, then that would incur papa, Bhagavan is saying. So dharmam kirtim cha hitva papam avapsyasi. And the Shastras say that if one does not perform one's obligatory duty, and this doesn't apply only to a Kshatriya, but to anyone who's not performing his obligatory duties that are enjoined by the Shastra, then that person gets a special papa called Pratyavaya Papam. Pratyavaya Papam. And then so that is what Bhagavan is emphasizing here. So with this shloka, Bhagavan's teaching from the dharmika drishti is also over. So in verses 31 to 33, Bhagavan taught from the dharmika drishti. And Bhagavan mentioned the positives of engaging in this fight, which are dharma rakshanam, praja rakshanam, and it is shreyaha for a kshatriya, and swarga praptihi. These are the four reasons Bhagavan has mentioned or implied. And the negatives Bhagavan talked about here, the first negative is that papam avapsasi, that he will get papam. Now, if somebody says that so far you have been talking about adhyatmika drishti, atma jnana drishti, and that I failed to understand. And then you talked about dharmika drishti. Dharmika drishti, you talked about papa and punya, etc. And if somebody says that I don't even have that much of shraddha to understand papa, to accept papa and punya, meaning if I don't accept the Veda as a pramana, then Bhagavan says that even from the laukika drishti, so even if we were to set aside the dharmika drishti and come down to the laukika drishti, then also it makes sense for you to fight the war, Bhagavan says. So from verses 34 to 36, Bhagavan is teaching from the laukika drishti, saying that he would lose his name and fame also. The name and fame is purely a worldly accomplishment. So Bhagavan is saying that even from a purely worldly standpoint, you risk losing your important worldly accomplishment, which is your name and fame. And so in the next verse, Bhagavan is talking about this. We will read that. Verse number 34. Akirtim chapi bhutani.
अकीर्तिं चापि भूतानि
Kathayishyanti te vyayam.
कथयिष्यन्ति ते व्ययाम्
Sambhavitasya cha kirtihi.
सम्भावितस्य च कीर्तिः
Maranadati richyate.
मरणादतिरिच्यते
Padachhedaha is akirtim cha api bhutani kathayishyanti te avyayam sambhavitasya cha akirtihi maranat atirichyate. So Bhagavan says akirtim chapi. So we take the api cha api, we take it as api cha. Api cha means moreover. So Bhagavan is now talking from the laukika drishti. Moreover, Bhagavan says. And he says kathayishyanti. Kathayishyanti means they will speak. Bhagavan says they will say, they will talk. And who will speak? Who will talk? Bhutani kathayishyanti. In the first quarter we have Bhutani. Bhutani kathayishyanti, meaning your fellow beings. The fellow beings will talk. They will speak. And they will speak of what? Akirtim. Akirtim means, kirti means fame. Akirti means ill fame. or we can say infamy or ill fame. So they will talk of ill fame, he says. And what type of infamy, what type of ill fame? In the second quarter, Bhagavan says, Kathayishyanti te avyayam. So avyayam akirtim kathayishyanti. Bhutani avyayam akirtim kathayishyanti. Your fellow beings, the human beings will talk. People will talk of your undying ill fame, Bhagavan says. We have used avyaya for the Atma also, saying that Atma is undying, not decaying. So here Bhagavan says that they will talk of your ill fame, and that ill fame will not go away. It will continue across generations. Your ill fame will continue, Bhagavan says. Whose ill fame? Te avyayam. So te there means tava. Te tava. So your ill fame, Bhagavan is saying. And then in the second quarter, in the fourth quarter, second line, the last quarter, Bhagavan says, Atirichyate. Atirichyate means it is worse. It is worse. And what is worse? Akirtihi atirichyate. This akirtihi is there. Sambhavitasya cha akirtihi maranat atirichyate. So akirtihi atirichyate. Bhagavan says that this ill fame is worse. Bhagavan says. And whose ill fame? Sambhavitasya in the third quarter. Sambhavitasya is there. Sambhavitasya means for of the one who is honored or respected in society. So of the one who is honored or respected in society. So for such a person who is honored, respected in society, Sambhavitasya akirtihi atirichyate. For a person who is honored or respected in society, this ill fame is worse, Bhagavan says. Worse compared to what? Maranat api, even death. This ill fame for the one who has been respected and honored in society, the ill fame is even worse compared to even death, Bhagavan is saying. So sambhavitasya akirtihi maranad atirichyate. So it is not just loss of fame. This akirtihi, is Swamiji points out that it is not just loss of fame. So it is not just going from becoming famous to becoming a nobody. It is not that. It is actually the opposite of somebody who is famous or respected. So it is the opposite in the sense there is ridicule and positive ridicule and disrespect. If there's somebody a nobody in society, nobody will go out of the way to ridicule or disrespect that person. But if somebody has earned ridicule or disrespect, then that is different from being a nobody. And therefore, if one is an unknown person, let's say there's an unknown soldier who just trembled and then ran away from the battlefield, and nobody is going to talk about such a person. In fact, he will soon be forgotten. But then if there is somebody who's famous, who's respected, who does something that is not becoming, then that becomes front page news. Because everybody will say, oh, such a person, he did such a thing, is it? Okay. So that will be remembered for generations. And therefore, his ill fame is even worse than death for somebody who is in a respected position. So in the last couple of verses, Bhagavan said that if Arjuna doesn't fight, he's talking about the negative, so I'm not fighting. So if Arjuna doesn't fight, then he will get papam. That was the first point Bhagavan said. And the second point is that if Arjuna says that I don't even care about papa, then he says that even from the worldly angle, you will earn this ridicule and disrespect, which can be worse than death. And so Bhagavan is continuing on this theme in the next couple of verses. We'll read verse number 35. Bhayadranaduparatam
भयाद्रणादुपरतम्
mansyante tvam maharathaah
मन्स्यन्ते त्वां महारथाः
येषाञ्च त्वं बहुमतः
येषां च त्वं बहुमतः
भूत्वा यास्यसि लाघवम्.
भूत्वा यास्यसि लाघवम्.
Padachhedaha is bhayat. So bhayad is there. That becomes bhayad due to a sandhi rule. Jashtvam. So bhayat, that breaks as bhayat ranat. Bhayat ranat. Again ranad is there. When you break the sandhi, it becomes ranat. And uparatam. Mansyante tvam maharathaha yesham cha tvam bahumataha bhutva yasyasi laghavam. So Bhagavan here says mansyante. Mansyante means they will think. They will think. So who will think? In the second quarter, we have Maharathaha. So Maharathaha mansyante. The great warriors will think. And what will they think? Tvam. So Maharathaha Tvam mansyante. The great warriors will think that you. It's an incomplete sentence. Maharathaha Tvam mansyante. They will think you. And what kind of you? Uparatam. Uparatam means retreated from, or stayed away from, retreated from. Uparatam is there in the first quarter. Bhayat, Ranat, Uparatam. So the great warriors, Maharathaha, Tvam, Uparatam mansyante. So the great warriors will think that you stayed away from. So again, it's an incomplete sentence. Stayed away from what? Ranat. From this battle. And due to what? Bhayat. Bhayat Ranad Uparatam. So they will think that you stayed away from this battle due to fear. And Bhagavad Pada adds in his Bhashya, fear of whom? So that Bhagavan doesn't mention here. So Bhagavad Pada always completes some things that Bhagavan left unsaid. So Bhagavad Pada says, warriors like Karna. So that you retreated out of fear from this battle due to fear of warriors like Karna, etc. So this is something that Arjuna would not like to hear. So Bhagavan is trying to, in some ways, needle Arjuna a bit here, saying that this is what people would say. From a Laukika Drishti, Bhagavan is talking. And then Bhagavan says in the second quarter, Tvam yasyasi. And then you will attain, Bhagavan says, this Yesham Chatvam Bahumataha Bhutva Yasyasi Laghavam is there. So we take the Yasyasi, which goes with Tvam. Yesham Chatvam Bahumataha. And then Yasyasi, we combine the Tvam and Yasyasi. You will attain what? Laghavam. Laghavam means you will attain low respect, the lightness. Lightness is called Laghavam. So lightness or low respect or low esteem. That is what it figuratively means. So you'll fall in their esteem. You'll become a lightweight entity for them. So they will not think of you as somebody who is heavyweight and worthy of respect. So Tvam Laghavam Yasyasi, Bhagavan says. And having been what? Bhutva. So Bhutva means having been. So Bhutva, having been what? Bahumataha. So Bahumataha Bhutva Laghavam Yasyasi Tvam. So you will attain this light weightness. You will attain this low esteem, low respect, having been somebody who is respected. So in their eyes, Yesham cha. So Yesham refers to those Maharathanam. We can add there. Those in those eyes of the Maharathas, you were somebody who was respected. Bahumataha bhutva laghavam yasyasi, meaning you will attain this lightweightness, you will attain low respect, low esteem in their eyes. So all these great warriors will think that you ran away out of fear. Now, Bhagavan knows, Bhagavan knows Arjuna's reason, because Arjuna has told him that it is out of compassion that he doesn't want to fight. But the motive is in Arjuna's mind, it is not visible to everybody. So knowingly or unknowingly, people could, when something is not visible, then people will project the motive. So unknowingly, people can project the motive, saying that he ran out of fear. They don't not knowing the real reason. But then the people on the other side, they are such. They are his rivals. They are his enemies. And so they will not, even knowingly they will attribute a motive that will defame him. That is what Bhagavan is saying here. So like an opposition party. So even if the government is doing good things, the opposition party will always criticize whatever the government is doing because they don't want the people to see the government in good light. So it is not good politics for a politician to allow the opposition party to be seen in good light. So they will always say something or the other to criticize the opposition, and you're just feeding them fodder here. Arjuna, you're just giving them fodder to talk all this about you, even if it's not true. So as we say, the winner always controls the narrative. So they will start a narrative that Arjuna ran away due to fear, and now the burden of proof would be on Arjuna to try to disprove it. And if somebody now comes and says that no, I did not run out of fear. No, I did not run out of fear. Then that is becoming, that people will view as he's now becoming very defensive and something like that. So whatever he says, he will be criticized. And so this is not a good path to go on from a Laukika Drishti also. Because how will anybody, how will he show his real motive to anybody? That is in his mind. And so he cannot prove his real motive in any objective terms. So whatever he says, people will find holes in that and criticize it. So here, Bhutva, Bhagavan says, Bahumataha Bhutva Tvam Laghavam Yasyasi. So having been respected in their eyes, so earlier at least they were, when Arjuna was fighting all these battles, they were always considering Arjuna to be a formidable rival, somebody to be reckoned with, and a force to be reckoned with. And they would always worry about him. They would constantly be preoccupied about how to defeat him in battle. Like now, Vaibhav Suryavanshi has become the talk of the town, and now even though he is only 15 years old, he is now occupying the mind of his rivals as to how do they ball to this person to contain him. So basically, he is somebody like who can destroy armies on his own. Arjuna is such a person. So the opposite army always worry about him. They always think about him. They always were scheming about how to defeat him. So he was occupying their minds. Bahumataha bhutva. And having been such a formidable rival, now he would attain lightness in their minds. They would fall in their esteem. And the next verse also, Bhagavan continues on a similar theme, saying that they would say a lot of unspeakable things about Arjuna. We'll read that, verse number 36. Avachyavadanschcha bahun
अवाच्यवादांश्च बहून्
vadishyanti tavahitaha
वदिष्यन्ति तवाहिताः
nindantastava samarthyam
निन्दन्तस्तव सामर्थ्यम्
tato dukkhatarang nu kim.
ततो दुःखतरन्नु किम्.
So here the padacheda is avachyavadan, avachyavadan cha, avachyavadan cha, bahun vadishyanti, bahun vadishyanti, tava ahitaha, tava ahitaha, nindantaha tava, nindantaha tava samarthyam, tataha dukkataram, tataha dukkataram nukim. So Bhagavan says, vadishyanti, they will say. They means who? Who will say? Ahitaha vadishyanti, ahitaha cha vadishyanti, and your enemies, those who are not your well-wishers, they will say. Whose enemies? Yours. Tava ahitaha cha vadishyanti. Your non-well-wishers, your enemies will say, Bhagavan says. And what will they say? Avachyavadan. Avachyavadan means unspeakable things. Avachyavadan. And what kind of unspeakable things? He says, Bahun. Bahun means many. Many kinds of unspeakable things they will say about you, because they are all projecting their own causes about why Arjuna ran away, and there is no limit to imagination. They can keep churning out stories about Arjuna. And doing what will they say these unspeakable things? So Bhagavan says in the next line, second line, Nindantaha. Nindantaha means criticizing, belittling, putting you down. They will say all this. And putting down what? Tava samarthyam. They will put down the Nindantaha Tava samarthyam. So criticizing, belittling, putting down your samarthyam, your capability. Because Arjuna had fought several fearful Rakshasas and eliminated them. And in fact, Arjuna is famous because he even he fought a battle with none less than Lord Shiva himself. Arjuna has fought a battle. And therefore, all of these stories made Arjuna famous. But then, even though Arjuna had all this fame, because of the way they will speak, they will highlight your latest withdrawal. The latest withdrawal will become the headline news, that it will eclipse everything else that Arjuna had done. For example, we see this phenomenon even in sports. Like for example, they will be having some important match. And before the important match, they will talk about all the great players on both the sides, etc. And then how many victories they have had and all of that. But then suppose that team collapses, your team collapses. Then they will just highlight the latest collapse and they will forget everything else and they will start criticizing the team. So the sports people have to go through this kind of a thing where after having been very famous, suddenly they have to deal with a lot of ill fame if that person does something that brought the team down and made them lose a particular game or a series. So, tava samarthyam, they will criticize your ability. Now, earlier they would have praised all the abilities, but now they will criticize the very same person. So, tava samarthyam nindantaha. So basically, we have seen repeatedly again and again that it's the winner who writes the history. And in this case, after the war, If Duryodhana wins, then Duryodhana would make sure that the people don't view Arjuna and the Pandavas in any kind of a positive light, because that would enable him to control any kind of a rebellion or a revolt that may happen amongst the people. So he would always want the people to view the Pandavas in low esteem. And so this is from the point of view of all the Maharathas. But even the soldiers, so here when Bhagavan says Vadishyanti, he is talking about everybody. So even the normal soldiers, they would sit down and over chai or whatever, they would talk about, they would gossip about their exploits in the war. And then one of the soldiers would start a story that like we said, I twirled my mustache. And then Arjuna said, Vepatuscha sharire me roma harshascha jayate, and he ran away. So somebody, even the normal people could start such a story. And then they would basically, even not just the normal people, even their children would then say, do you know my Chittappa, he was a soldier in the war. And then he twirled my uncle, he twirled his mustache. And then Arjuna ran away. So even the kids would start talking about you. So avachya vadancha bahun vadishyanti includes all of these kinds of things that would happen. And not just children of that generation, but the children would now propagate these stories to their children, and therefore there would be this parampara now, right? This parampara where people would tell this katha about Arjuna, about how Arjuna ran away. His ill fame would continue, and that is why Bhagavan said that Avyayam. Bhagavan said Akirti earlier. So it would be an undecaying ill fame of this sort. And Bhagavan is asking that, is there anything more painful than that? Tataha dukkhataram nu kim? Tataha dukkhataram kim nu bhavati? Bhagavan is asking that, is there anything that is worse than this? Because earlier Bhagavan had said maranadapi atirichyate. It is worse compared to even death. And therefore, in fact, a person, as we have said, who doesn't have any fame at all, in fact, one who is a nobody, such a person is very safe. He has nothing to lose. So he can run away from the battle and nobody would even notice. But then when somebody having some fame does something that is unbecoming, then it becomes headline news. And even today we see all this, that if somebody who has some fame does something unbecoming, then journalists would throng to the person who has started this narrative. They would throng to that person and say that, give us this exclusive scoop, and then we will pay you some money for that. And then that person also gets some money in the process. And then the public, then once this such a story gets published, then the people take care of the rest. They keep the gossip mills churning. Right? Once this news has come out, and the journalist only says that it was alleged that such a person did such and such a thing. Right? That he is not saying it's confirmed, but even that allegation is enough, and people start the rumor mills going. So this person now, the person who had this fame, he now wishes that he never had this fame at all. He now wishes that he was a nobody, because a nobody is perfectly safe. It is the one who has this fame, that has the problem. And therefore, Bhagavan says, Tataha dukkataram kim nu bhavati. What is there that is worse than this from a laukika drishti? And then in the next verse, Bhagavan says that if you fight, you will win either way. So we will read that verse. Hato va prapsyasi swargam.
अतो वा प्राप्स्यसि स्वर्गम्
Jitva va bhokshyase mahim.
जित्वा वा भोक्ष्यसे महीम्
Tasmaduttishta Kaunteya.
तस्माद्युत्तिष्ठ कौन्तेय
Yuddhaya Krita Nishchayah.
युद्धाय कृतनिश्चयः
हतः वा प्राप्स्यसि स्वर्गं जित्वा वा भोक्ष्यसे महीम् तस्मात् उत्तिष्ठ तस्मात् उत्तिष्ठ कौन्तेय युद्धाय कृतनिश्चयः. So Bhagavan says, Tvam prapsyasi. So hato va prapsyasi is there. So tvam prapsyasi, we can supply the tvam. Tvam prapsyasi means you will attain, you will gain. And you will attain or gain what? Swargam. 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 Tvam swargam prapsyasi. You will attain swarga, Bhagavan says. Under what condition? Hataha va. Hataha va means if you are killed. Hataha va. If you are killed, you will attain swargam. And then in the second quarter, Bhagavan says, Bhokshase. Bhokshase means you will experience, you will enjoy. You will enjoy what? From Bhokshase, you will enjoy what? Mahim. Mahim means this earth, this Prithvi, this kingdom. You will enjoy this kingdom. Under what condition? Jitva va. If you win. So if you win, you will enjoy this kingdom, you will enjoy this earth. So Bhagavan is saying that you will win either way. If you die, you will go to Swarga, and if you win, you will enjoy this kingdom. And then in the second line, Bhagavan says, Hey Kaunteya, O Arjuna, Tasmat, therefore. Therefore means because it is a win-win, because it is a win-win situation. Uttishtha, Tvam Uttishtha, may you arise, Bhagavan says. Tvam Uttishtha, may you arise. And what kind of you? Krita Nishchayaha. Krita Nishchayaha means one who has made a resolve. So having made a resolve, may you arise, Bhagavan says. And having made a resolve for what? Yuddhaya Krita Nishchayaha. Having made a resolve to fight, may you arise. So Hatova Swargam Prapsyasi. Hatova Hataha va Tvam Swargam Prapsyati Jitva va Tvam Mahim Bhokshase. So there is no third option, Bhagavan is saying. There is no retreat. So either way you are a winner. So Krishna refutes what Arjuna had said earlier, that this war would lead to papam and narakam. Here Bhagavan is saying that if you die, you will go to Swarga, and if you win this war, then you will enjoy the kingdom. So here, with this verse, the teaching from the three levels is also over. Adhyatmika Drishti teaching is over. Dharmika Drishti and Laukika Drishti. From all of these three viewpoints, the teaching is over. And from the next verse is a transition verse. So if we see the teaching so far, primarily it was from the Adhyatmika Drishti, from the Jnana Yoga Drishti. So if we look at it, there are two aspects to life. One is right knowledge, and then the second is right action. So in the view of Sanatana Dharma, right action or right way of living will eventually lead to right knowledge or right vision. So right way of living leads to right vision. So far, Bhagavan had talked about primarily from the point of view of Adhyatmika Drishti, which is from the point of view of this right vision, which is attained through Jnana Yoga, which was this Adhyatmika Drishti, Atma Jnana Drishti, that is attained through Jnana Yoga, through the Jnana Kanda of the Veda. Or in other words, Vedanta. Through Vedanta, the Jnana Yoga, the right vision is attained. In order to attain this, one needs certain qualifications. And the qualifications are attained through the right way of living, which is through the Veda Purva, The Veda Purva teaches us the right way of living. And that also includes the way of living karma yoga. It's the right way of living. Right action. Karma kanda. And that eventually leads to the right vision. So right action, right way of living leads to the right vision or right knowledge. So here Bhagavan is now going to start the teaching of Karma Yoga. So in this next verse lies the seed for Karma Yoga. So we will we will read that shloka. Sukha dukkhe same kritva
सुख दुःखे समे कृत्वा
labha jaya jayau
लाभालाभौ जयाजयौ
tato yuddhaya yujyasva
ततो युद्धाय युज्यस्व
naivam papamavapsyasi.
नैवं पापमवाप्स्यसि.
So Padachhedaha, if we do Sukha Dukhe Same Kritva Labha Labhau Jaya Jayau. So all of these are Samasta Padas. So we can't break that because it is a Samasaha. Jaya Jayau, Labha Labhau, Sukha Dukhe. All of these are Samasta Padas. And Tataha Yuddhaya Yuchyasva na evam papam avapsyasi. So Bhagavan in the second line says Tvam yujyasva, may you prepare. And may you prepare for what? Yuddhaya, may you prepare for the battle. Yuddhaya tvam yujyasva. And having done what? Having done what? Same kritva, meaning having taken them to be the same. Taking them to be the same. Taking what to be the same? Sukha dukhe. Sukha dukhe means pleasure and pain. Labha labhau, gain and loss. Jaya jayau, victory and defeat. So sukha dukhe, labha labhau, jaya jayau cha same kritva yuddhaya tvam yujyasva. And then what? Then what? Tataha. Tataha means then. Then what? Na evam papam avapsyasi. So in this manner, evam papam na avapsyasi. You will not attain papa, Bhagavan says. So here Bhagavan says, Sukha dukkhe labha labhau jaya jayo same kritva cha same kritva means look upon sukha dukkha, labha alabha means look upon pleasure and pain. Labha alabha means gain and loss. And jaya and ajaya means victory and defeat. Look upon them as the same, Bhagavan says. So if we take the literal meaning, Bhagavan is saying look upon them as the same. But here Bhagavan is talking about the opposites. So if the opposites are looked upon as the same, then is it right vision or wrong vision? Opposites are looked upon as the same. Is it right vision or wrong vision? It's a trick question. So, so if we say that it is the right vision, there's a problem. Because they are opposites. How can the opposites be the same? How can we call it right vision? Then we say wrong vision, then also there is a problem because we are criticizing Bhagavan, saying Bhagavan is giving a wrong vision. That's why it's a trick question. So how do we solve this problem? So we say that looking upon the opposites as the same cannot be said to be the right vision. So Bhagavan here is not literally meaning look upon them as the same. So one clearly sees victory as victory, defeat as defeat, gain as gain, loss as loss, pleasure as pleasure, pain as pain. So one does not literally look upon them as the same. But Bhagavan's intent here is to say that the response one has towards them is the same. One knows victory is victory, defeat is defeat. One knows gain is gain, loss is loss. But the response to them is the same. And generally, the response to them is dictated by my ragas and dveshas, by my likes and dislikes. That is what a person on the street does. He responds to situations based on the dictates of one's ragas and dveshas. But the seed of karma yoga is that one doesn't allow the ragas and dveshas, one's own likes and dislikes to sway the mind, to determine what happens in the mind, to determine one's response to these situations. But one stands apart from one's own ragas and dveshas and then responds to situations. So in doing so, Bhagavan has given the seed of Karma Yoga here, which we will continue in our next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha Hari Om